we now have all the information we need recorded inside of our class component to actually generate a password. So we know the length and whether or not to include numbers, letters, and symbols. So now we can go down to our generate password function, or the function that gets called anytime a user clicks on that generate password button, and make sure that we use this data to generate a password, and then we'll use the password we generate to update the password property right here. Remember, anytime that we update this password property, that is going to cause Angular to spring into action. It's going to take that updated property and use it to update the value of the input down here. So let's get to it. I'm going to first go down to the very bottom of this file where we defined our onButtonClick function. So once again, our goal is pretty much this right here. We want to eventually assign a new string to the this.password property. And as soon as we do, that is going to show up inside of that input right there. Okay, so I'm going to delete everything inside of the onButtonClick function. Now I want you to know right away that there are many different ways to generate a random password. I'm just going to show you a pretty simple and straightforward way of doing it. We're going to go through this implementation kind of quickly because this is kind of like some general programming stuff. It's not really specific to Angular, and I really want to focus on Angular as much as possible in the first part of this course. Okay, so inside of onButtonClick, we're going to first list out inside of 3 different variables all of the possible characters that can be used inside of a password. So I'm going to say const numbers is going to be a string that has all the possible numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. I'll then do the same thing for letters. So that will be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, Q, R, S, T, U, V, and Y, Z. Close enough. There we go. Then finally, symbols as well. So I'm going to say that valid symbols inside of a password will be exclamation, at, pound, basically just right across the top row of my keyboard, like so. All right, so we've now got all the possible valid characters that can go into a password. I'll then create a new string called valid chars, short for valid characters, and I'll assign it an empty string. So now, right after that, we're going to take a look at what value we have for include letters, numbers, and symbols. If any of these are true, then we're going to take the appropriate character set, so in other words, these different character sets right here, and add them in to the valid chars string. Let me show you what I mean. Right after valid chars, I'll say if this dot include letters, then I want to take the entire set of letters and add them into the pool of possible valid characters for the password I'm about to generate. So I'll say valid chars plus equals, which just means take all of the letters right here and add them to the end of this string. So plus equals letters like so. I'll then repeat that process for the other 2 flags we have as well. So I'll say if this dot include numbers, valid chars plus equals numbers, and then finally if this dot include symbols, valid chars plus equals symbols. So now valid chars is a string that has all the valid characters that we can possibly add into a password. Now the last step, we're going to set up a little for loop. We're going to iterate from 0 all the way up to whatever our length of password is. Then for every step of our for loop, we're going to select a character at random out of this valid chars array and use that randomly selected character to form up our password. So the last step after that if statement right there, I'm going to create a little local variable called generated password, and I'll default it to be an empty string. Then I'll set up my for loop. So I'll say for let I, starting at 0, going all the way up to less than this dot length, I++. So then inside of here, we will pick out a random character from the valid chars string. So to do so, we need to calculate really a random index inside there. So to find a random index, we'll say const index is math.floor. Then we'll pick a random number and multiply it by valid chars.length. And I'll zoom out for just a second so you can see that whole line. So again, this is going to take a look at the length of the valid characters array. It's going to multiply it by a random number to give us a random number between 0 and that length. And then we're just going to round down to the nearest integer. Then we'll take that index and use it to look up a random character, or I should say a specific character inside the valid chars array, and we'll add it in to the end of the generated password variable. We'll say generated password plus equals valid chars at that particular index. And that's it. That's how we generate a random password. So now remember, the end goal of this entire function right here, on button click, the very end goal, whatever password we generate inside of here, we have to assign back to the password property, because that is what is going to actually get our HTML display to be updated automatically by Angular. So right after that for loop, I'm going to take the generated password and we'll assign it to the this.password property. We'll say this.password, assign it to generated password. And that is it. Let's save this and we'll do a quick test. So I'm going to flip back over. I'm going to enter in a length of 10, and then I'll select use letters and I'll click on generate. Now I can see a random string of characters. If I also select use numbers, now I've got a password with numbers. And if I also add in symbols, yep, got some symbols in there as well. If I start to remove things, like let's say numbers, okay, now I've got only letters and symbols. Let's say this works out pretty well. And there are one or two things about this little tool that are still a little bit awkward. So let's take a quick pause right here and fix up one or two very quick things inside the next video.